All right. Well, I don't know where it is, so we're just gonna go for it live.
Woo!
We're live in in Patreon, and I couldn't find the intro. There it is. Okay. Well, this is Tya
Sam can
Talk.
sing it for us.
Yes, this is Tya Talk, and it's our roundtable, and I'm going to introduce everybody.
Woo!
So, most everyone knows Deborah Wilson, a Thai coach, and we have David Rude, who is our latest Taya graduate. Welcome, David. And Stephanie Pittman she is she helps me and David do all things the Stream of David and David Strickle Media behind the scenes, but she's also a Taya graduate. And Sam Page, who is a Taya graduate as well. It's so exciting. Oh, and let's see who else is joining us. I can't see okay. I see you, Luke, but I don't know how to get that on. I'm going to figure out how to get Luke on. There we
You
go.
do your stuff. That's
you
wonderful. I love it.
And that's
Good
Luke.
morning.
Where
He's
are you, Luke?
a graduate. How fun is this?
I can't
love
see Luke. Can everyone else see him? Is it
I
because
see
I've
him,
got
yeah.
too many people on my screen?
Yeah.
Do we see Luke?
Luke's great.
I see Luke. Hi, Luke.
Hello, good morning. Good afternoon.
So, and if anyone is joining us in Patreon, remember to click the YouTube at the bottom of your screen, and that will allow us to see your comments. And we lost David, so he'll be back, I'm sure. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Deborah. You had a story you wanted to share?
Oh, I got
with
lots
us?
of stories. Always got lots of stories. Hey, Luke, I can see you now. I'm
Good
thinking my Wi-Fi, as we called it in Spain, my Wi-Fi might be slightly dodgy. So if I freeze, then you can look at the lovely garden behind me until I pop back in. But I'm just, first of all, I'm just so thrilled that the community spirit, the community vibe is everyone is joining. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm so excited for that. I did share a post today on the which of the Taya groups. I don't know. We've got so many now. Not the what do we call it? Not the expanded. The
It was
base
base
camp.
camp.
Base camp. Yeah, base camp group. And in which I was talking about how I've looked back on my path since I graduated and have seen very clearly how I was very much guided to be totally immersed in the community. I think that I personally really needed that personally. I know there are people that have, gosh, what's the lovely, I don't want to butcher her name, Margaret. She did a podcast. Thank you, David. She did a podcast recently with David, and she just took her practice and ran with it and is just doing superbly, and her practice is fluid, and her, so I see now, I look back and I see that for me personally that was really necessary to be deeply immersed and really held accountable, because I am a little, how would I put it, flighty by nature and like this Piscean dreamer, and so I could have been off and I so see the, I think, and this is generalized for everyone, whatever form that takes for you, but I do see the importance of the daily practice, and the immersion and community, I think, is just so massively helpful. So I'm absolutely thrilled that we've got a lovely group of us together today. So I'm gonna, you know, when I say I'll try not to talk too much, but I will anyway. But I will try for once in my life to be a little bit brief, because we've got lots of lovely people to share their fabulous stories with today. So I'm not quite sure where I'm taking this, but and obviously we can all just jump in with anything that we feel that resonates and just let it flow from there. but that's my main sort of passion at the moment, is to really encourage people that whatever that looks like for them, there's no one size fits all, but the real sort of accountability part and the just the consistency, I'd say, of it, and however that looks like for you. And it'd be really good to hear from people maybe how that looks for them. And then there were just a couple of my good old stories which I've shared with. I probably shared them with most of you here now, because been expanded and stuff. So just like really briefly, just to show that the results are inevitably, for me, when you do that really daily, and when you do keep up your practice and you're consistent in your vibe. Absolutely, for me, in my personal experience, I see how it is just up leveled exponentially since I graduated, and now I'm really seeing it in the manifestations. But those manifestations are always the secondary, just byproduct, and they're not important, because you really do get to that place where you don't need any outside validation or any sign in your outside life, because you feel so much joy. You feel so filled up from within, that they're sort of like an added bonus, as it were, because when you're in so much joy and clarity, that's all we're really looking for anyway, with anything that we wish, any preferences that we have, is to bring ourselves more joy and clarity. And so it's lovely, and I won't go I keep saying I won't go on, but I'm still talking. The manifestation of sort of the dreamboat, that my partner and I were just playing with that idea, and it was releasing the need. Wouldn't it be nice? And boom, there she was. And then oh, I say that money flowed out. Well, now I see that that's more room now for that vacuum to for money to flow in, and boom, wouldn't that be nice to work on the Camino? And boom, that literally popped in. So as I say, these manifestations are really showing up for me, but as the secondary byproduct, and the joy and the clarity and the beautiful sense of community that we're in. Those are the really, really fulfilling bit. So now I really will stop talking and hear from some of the other wonderful people that we have with us today.
I love that. And I was going to say, you don't have to mute. The only reason I do mute is my dogs make a lot of noise, and sometimes there's construction going on. So I just don't want that feedback. But you do not have to mute. You can jump in anytime. Cheryl joined us and said hello. So
Yay.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hey, Cheryl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that, Deborah, because for my own practice, which I've been doing, gosh, I was trying to count yesterday, and I keep meaning to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure it's been about 4 years now since I just met David and then went into it. But I still see the need vibe show up in my life, and realize that it's so sneaky, for lack of a better word, that it shows up, and then I'll get an outside indication of I'm still in the need vibe, or of the looking for it. Where is it? Where's that next thing I want? Right. And I love that you say that, because when David Strickle brought the "wouldn't it be nice" concept, and I started playing with that in the very beginning, I also noticed that I was, much like appreciation, I was appreciating it and I was saying it, but I was not feeling it. So there was still a little bit of a need vibe in that "wouldn't it be nice?" I need it. And when I really looked at that and detuned and dusted it off, and really, as you said, just enjoying the moment and the beauty of the clarity and joy that I feel every day, and and not looking for anything else to show up other than that, that's when things started showing up. And it's really interesting to me. So because I used to make goals and, I wanted these things to happen by these dates. And I no longer do that. I'm just enjoying and appreciating and living in the moment that I'm in and the day that I'm in, and not worrying about tomorrow, not worrying about what happened in the past, just really focusing on being absolutely present in every experience. And yeah, that's changed everything. And I'm going to mute.
I agree.
There you go. Yeah.
So jump on in, anyone.
For me, I think a lot of what you have said that's been said so far resonates, because I think one of my big takeaways from my bootcamp journey and everything since is that the universe responds to your vibration more than anything. And then alongside that, I think my biggest change since I've finished bootcamp is that my vibration, just by default, has gotten a lot higher, better, whatever you want to call it. And so I think just remaining in joy, and then just allowing the manifestations to come without focusing on any specific outcome, and just trusting that everything is towards the best outcome possible, is working pretty well, I think.
Cool.
So I haven't been to a Tya Talk in a month. Well, I think this is my first time. So are we just sitting and talking, or do we? That's it. Well, me personally,
Yep,
my
we're just whatever comes up for you.
Yes.
For me, the biggest thing is just that connection with source, and seeing from that perspective. I never imagined myself being able to do that, but after Tya, a lot of the things that happen, I seem to not have a lot of judgment in it, and a lot of people are confused by that, because I'm supposed to choose a side. I'm supposed to be either picking this side or that side, and I'm usually just neutral. I'm always finding things to appreciate about both sides. So I never feel like I need to pick a side. I just pick and choose what feels good and just stay with that. And a lot of everyday people don't really understand that. So that's why being in this community is so important to me, because you guys understand that. You guys are we've all come through a point where we could see things from any higher perspective and see the bigness of it. Even some of the crazier things in life that we see, we're supposed to be oh my gosh, these are the villains, or these are the bad guys, or these are whatever. But me, just in general, I've always just been a half glass full kind of a person. So putting Tya on it and then seeing it from a bigger perspective, source loves everybody and anything out there, every experience. And it's allowed me to put myself in there. It was oh, that's another version of me experiencing that. So that version of me is just going through that reality. So why am I judging that? It's just an experience, good or bad. What can I learn from it? And a lot of those, I'm having a lot more conversations internally and responding to them rather than reacting right away. Another thing is anger is one of the things that I grew up not being able to express that much, and I'm I'm expressing it a little bit more, and there's less and less judgment, because I just thought I wasn't allowed to be angry. But no, it's a natural human emotion, and let it out. Don't hold on to it. Just don't be an angry person the whole time. But anger is even though quote unquote it's a negative thing, but you just gotta let it out. Sometimes, even if you're sometimes when I'm in the car, I just screaming, and it feels good. It's ah, I was why don't I? Why do I see it, but it just it randomly just happens, and that's how I release it, and it's gone, and I just start laughing at the fact that I just scream like that, and the whole thing is just a circle. I'm angry, but I'm also happy at the fact that I'm angry, and things just seem to work out a little bit better, and I'm seeing results of whatever's manifesting in front of me. I'm seeing oh, these are the things that I thought about back then, and I'm seeing how everything became it, and just being aware of all that is kind of a wonderful feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, Luke. I love what you and Sam just brought to the Tya Talk. And yes, this is a new platform we're trying, just a roundtable where we just are all discussing our Tya tools and how they work. And I love as always, hearing everybody's different view. And it's interesting because Deborah and I just had this conversation, I believe, last week about anger showing up. And it's a natural human emotion. And as long as you don't stay in the anger and realize that when you are angry, you're a different person, it's a different vibration, right? And feel the anger. And then I love that you just let it out and then find yourself laughing, because I also, Deborah and I had a conversation a few months back of when you're triggered and you're detuning it, but instantly seeing the good in it, like all in the same minute, which was a new experience for me. And realizing that you can be in it and detune it and allow it and then let it go all in the same moment. And it's really quite liberating to feel all those emotions and know you have control. You didn't have to sit in the anger for days, right? You just felt it, you allowed it, you looked at it, and then you let it go. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so eloquent. You're so eloquent, Luke. I love it.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely
it's
love how
also
you describe things. It's beautiful. I'm so glad you're here. Oh, Eddie's gone.
all right. It's also to me.
Oh.
It's also it's interesting. It just occurred to me that like sometimes emotions get a little blurry as to which one is which, because like if you're gonna go speak in a public setting or like go onto stage and play a concerto or something, there's like often a feeling of like nervousness or anxiety, but we also at the same time the actual chemical response in the brain between excitement and fear is kind of the same thing. So the feeling of riding a roller coaster is sort of the same feeling I have going into a concert or something. And so in a way, like I'm not even sure that anger is necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes like that anger can in a way can be like a assertion, or like so I had a teacher one time say, he was a symphony musician. He would say he would get angry in concerts because that kept him from being too passive and letting the situation dominate him. He would almost get like angry at the audience, you know, which is kind of weird if you think about it from an audience perspective. The violinist up there is mad at us or something, but that's sort of what keeps them in for that person, it could keep them in an assertive, you know, on top of the situation, you know. So I don't know. I guess it's interesting how there's it kind of blurs over a little bit. It's
Right.
useful, you know.
Yeah, and I love what you say about the fear and transmuting that to excitement. That's something that's been really coming up recently too, and absolutely having that knowing that once again the back to frontedness which doesn't exist of the operating of the matrix, which shows that the fear is just like the worst thing you could possibly feel, but that absolute knowing that I had when I was standing on the top of a precipice and going, oh, this is exactly why we're here, and to embrace those opportunities and to not to bypass it, but to feel it, feel into it, let it expand within you, and then know that it is always for you, happening for you, not to you, and for you to expand with that and to embrace it and to see what that fear was showing you and keeping you from. And it's sort of like looking at the man behind the curtain. Don't look at the man behind the curtain. It's like, you know, I looked at the man behind the curtain and I saw through the fear, and it was like it was literally laughing and going, oh my god, now I see what you are. You're my friend, showing me that this is my opportunity to expand. Thank you. You know.
Yeah. And I love it. It's much like polarity that we learn about in boot camp. The polarity, everything has polarity. And so you can push against the fear and stay frozen, right? And get really allow that fear to take hold of you physically, emotionally, mentally, or like you said, David, bringing it into the polar opposite of excited, anxious, not anxious in the world of scared, but anxious in the world of excitement, like you said, Deborah, and transmute that energy and use that vibration to experience it fully. I've been playing with the fear as well, because fear is a part of a human experience, and there is a real legitimate reason for it. When we talked a little bit about that yesterday and expanded of when something really is in that moment life threatening or feels life threatening. And I know as a mom, having that with my children, it brought me to the power of now, to the moment. Like, that was the only thing that I could focus on, was getting my child safe and not letting all the other stuff go. So using that energy to take action and get my child to safety was beautiful. And so I love that you said that, Deborah, standing up there on that. I can just picture you when you told that story of being on the locks for the ship that they bought, having to go through, and it's looking over like the edge of a cliff, right? And going, this is what I'm here to do. Experiencing that.
When I finally I clutched my way across it first, it would have been so funny. I wish that Andy had filmed it. It would have been hilarious. Oh dear. But particularly as performers, I think. Carry on, David.
It actually, something just clicked into place from something totally outside of Tya, because I've studied sports psychology a lot, and how the mind reacts like a stress response. Because, as a performing musician, this is actually really important to understand. There's a guy in New York who teaches at the school who's a specialist in all this, and I've worked with him a lot. And when you have a stress response, there are actually three aspects of it. There's like the physical stress response, like the heart beating and all that. The mental stress response, like the racing mind and stuff. And then the emotional stress response, like the feeling of doom and impending, like I'm going to die sort of a feeling. Of those three, the physical stress response is in no way indicative of performance outcomes. So people can have all this like racing feelings, and it's not going to actually change their performance. It's the mental, the cognitive stress response and the emotional stress response that actually can impact things. And this kind of makes sense in a Tya perspective, because that maybe is a bit closer to where the vibrational aspect of all of it. So, but I think it helped me a lot to understand that if I'm going into a situation and my heart is pounding and my hands are cold and all that stuff, it doesn't matter. It matters what's going on here and what's going on in my presence of me. And if my mouth is dry, well, that's fine, So, yeah.
Water.
That's really interesting. I was wondering how that was for you guys, particularly you and Sam as performers, of how that shows up for you in your performance. I don't know if Sam, if it's something that you've.
Honestly, anymore, I'm usually excited more than anything else, and then I just kind of get to a sort of connected place and deliver.
I would so love to see you perform, see both of you.
Yeah. It could happen. Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Well, I'm just down the street from you, so you're like 100 miles apart from Luke and Sam. We're really close to each other. So
right.
Right,
this whole bottom row is the Midwestern row here.
I love it, and I love that you got to meet in person. Because it really is such a amazing experience, which I got to experience as well in January, and meet Sam and Luke.
I love that.
Person. It was just beyond everything I could have ever dreamed of. It was just absolutely amazing. And it still to this day surprises me that you can meet people online and go through this experience together, and there's just this deep connection, and I know it's of source, and deep love and understanding and appreciation for each of us having that experience. And then when you meet in person, it was magical. It was like I had known you forever. You were my family. And yeah, it's so cool. And I was so excited that y'all got to meet David Rood and connect, that y'all live so close together. And then, of course, two musicians. So how cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was definitely a magical experience in January when we went there. For me, Sam, and I took my brother with me too, and our flight got canceled. So we almost thought we were gonna not make it. And everybody was upset in the line except for me and Sam. We were just dancing. We're like, it is what it is. It's whatever. And I was like, we're like the Tya unicorns. Like, people are probably like, what is wrong with them? They should be upset. Like, our flight got canceled, but we're like, if we're meant to be there, we're there. At first, I was kind of upset too, and but when I saw Sam dancing, Sam just always like in his magical dancing place. So I started dancing with him, and at that moment, I was like, I'm gonna let go. If we make it, great. If we don't, then there's 3 more coming up at that time. So if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And as soon as we released it, as soon as we're just happy and we get the next flight and we get there, we were a little bit late, but as soon as we got there, like the hugs, the kisses, everything that we got was so genuine, and we felt it. And but even my brother, who's never met any of you guys, he's only just came with me to figure out what's happening over here, and he fell in love with you guys, and he was just like, Luke, you made some good friends online. And I was like, it's just a wonderful, beautiful community. Like, I didn't have to do any work. I just kind of was myself, and everybody just kind of resonated with each other, and we just became best friends. And he had such a good time as well, like just meeting everybody for the first time. Is like, this is the community to be with.
Don't you feel like that you've known most of these people in the Tya community forever? I always feel like there's some kind of connection, and I don't know how I know everyone, but it's just such a close bond.
Yeah,
it's wonderful.
I know, isn't it magical? And Cheryl, if you have questions for any of us, please type in the comments, and we'll answer anything that you are curious about.
And if anyone's watching on Patreon, hop over to YouTube. There's a little mark at the bottom of the screen for YouTube, and your comments will be seen there.
Yeah. David Rood, our most curious boot camper yet, I believe.
Right? Oh, what brilliant questions. Oh my goodness. Absolutely love your questions to the stream, and just your inquiring mind. It's just, it's fascinating. Just fascinating. I love what you were saying then, Steph, about that the meeting the people, and this like because if you said it to anyone else, I realize it sort of sounds nuts that these people that I just love dearly and do consider like family, and then if it's so when have you met? Like we actually met in person. It would sound completely nuts, but it's a vibration thing, and it is, oh my god, such a massive gift. I mean, how much fun. And I sort of forget though that this isn't like the norm sometimes, and then because I haven't spent so much time back in the Matrix world, and then when I started traveling a bit more recently and going back out, I was like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten that most people don't have these sort of conversations on a regular level, and it's sort of like a slight adjustment, but it's like not the judgment of just like observing and going, oh wow, and how you used to be before pre-Tya, and especially the judgment. Oh man, I judged so much, and it was more that I used to really upset me that people were having such, in my opinion, a bad time, and that they looked so stressed, and I wanted to go and rescue everyone with that, and it's just such a beautiful way just to move through literally without the judgment of them, and just blessing them, and literally trying to stay up your lighthouse. That's all you have to do, and that's not all you have to do. It's what you get to do, and it's in fact the most productive thing that you ever could do, because you could never rescue anyone from anything, and neither should you. They're having their perfectly imperfect experience, as are we all.
I know. It's interesting. Sorry. I was just thinking what Steph said, because her and I had a great conversation yesterday about the love aspect of really loving without judgment, loving without fear, and just it's so interesting to me when I am out in the matrix, the real world, whatever, and especially when I'm in my just complete joy and just observing, and the amount of people now that are being attracted and coming into my community it's such a different level of people, and I'm having the most lovely conversations with people because I'm noticing that my judgment of that Deborah is gone. It's just they're just having their experience, and what I'm noticing is more and more people that I'm meeting now that I'm here. I moved, out of my hometown and live in a new country, and I'm just having some really great interactions with new people in the past week of just bringing in my observation and non-judgment, but loving, like really loving the experience that I'm in. And so it was interesting, Steph. I love how you brought that to light, like, because that's when we meet each other in person, we've already experienced that. And so like you said, Deborah, I don't think people could get it. Like, what do you mean you love these people? You haven't even met them. And but I know them so well because we have all shared this experience together. So it's very cool.
It's
And,
only just occurred to, sorry,
no,
only just occurred to me now that really understanding what I've said so many times about that first boot camp meeting that I went to. Oh my God, I was like terrified. I was everything. But that vibrationally, how even in all that terror and judgment, and above all the self-judgment, that vibrationally, I absolutely knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that nobody there was judging me, and that all I had to do was completely be myself, which is massive. And it's somehow only just really clicked now that as Sam was saying, because it's nothing to do with the words, is that like, was it like 90% of communication is vibration? The words are sort of almost irrelevant. We could be sitting here going banana, but it's the vibration of the love and the joy that we feel, and that I could pick up on that vibrationally, even though, oh my God, at the beginning of boot camp, I was just such a massive ball of judgment and fear, and but that vibration, as Sam so beautifully pointed out, it's the vibration always, of course, and the vibration that we're all immersed in here. I mean, look at Steph's beautiful face. Oh my goodness, I just want to go, ooh, just it's of course it knows no boundaries, does it? Literally no
Another
boundaries.
thing about all of us is that we all, like the transgressors, we got to like face and overcome our biggest, like the beginning of the course, the boot camp is like, figuring out what are bigger transgressors right now, and like actually like realizing not none of us didn't have one. We all had a transgressor of our own version, and we all had struggles of our own version, and we all overcame them, and overcoming them is the thing that kind of unites us. Like, okay, yeah, you did it. Like, we've always
Right.
heard each other's stories, and like biggest transgressors ends up being like things that we end up sharing, end up being some dark things that we kind of end up having conversations one-on-ones about, and finding out like these things are quote unquote our deepest, darkest secrets that we've been kind of like scared to talk to anybody about or share with anybody because we are afraid they're gonna think we're freaks or monsters or whatever. Like, nobody's gonna understand my perspective, but not a single person has ever been like, "Oh, ew, you're gross," or no. It's always been like loving, like like welcoming, like, yes, like, good job for overcoming that. I'm sorry you went through that, but great job for. So like the support that we have with each other, with the one-on-ones that we have, the conversations and the group things that we have, the whole community as a bit. It's a very, very important thing because that community is what we kind of lack from our everyday life, because we
Right.
are unique individuals, and our thought process sometimes really goes over people's heads, or their thought process goes over our head. And here we're all like all similar minds who are trying to work on ourselves rather than trying to improve anybody else. So us wanting to improve ourselves is like what unites us. Like, yes, let's everybody work on ourselves and get just have a good time together, feel off of each other's vibes.
Oh, Luke, I love you. You're so eloquent. I absolutely love how you. I could just listen to you all day. Love it.
Let's do a podcast.
Yeah. Come on, we need
I
more
would so
Luke.
listen to a Luke and Deborah podcast.
That would be fabulous. Yeah.
Right.
And the thing I loved too, Luke, was that in meeting you and Sam, and then many of the other boot campers, when we got to meet in person, was again that just sheer joy vibration of and Sam always dancing and always moving, and just Sam, your joy, it's contagious. I don't even care if they're not like even understand Tya. Joy and you're just beautiful. He's always dancing, always smiling, always. It's so contagious. And Luke, same. You just have that, like when like you said, your brother came and we didn't know him, but because you brought him and he was your brother, we instantly loved him as well.
He had a vulnerable moment on stage as well, which allowed everybody to kind of see, because like not like his intention was to kind of like figure out what's this cult that my brother is kind of a part of. Like, let me expose them, let me see what's happening. And his intention wasn't there to be friends with you guys. This was to like kind of expose you all. Like, what are you guys doing to my brother? But like when he went there and when he had his own experience and he's crying and everybody's crying, everybody's hugging him, and he's like, "What is happening?" And yeah, the whole experience was just beautiful. Like, I didn't realize that's what he came for. I thought he just came to see California, but he's like, "Nah, I just want to see what these people are you talking to online."
I know. Still
Love
get
that so much.
Yes, and the source chills, as I call them now, the just intense emotion of appreciation and love, because to see your brother, actually he came on stage with a stream to ask a question, and all of a sudden it just, like, the emotion of love from the stream and source and the love in the room just overcame him, and the tears flowing, and he was so beautifully vulnerable and just shared so much. And it was like he came down the stage and like everyone that was in was just hugging him, and it was the most magical experience ever. And
it really was.
Yeah, we still talk about that, and I think of him often, and I hope he is doing well. And the other thing that I love too is the sense of humor that is brought. David Rude, you have such a sense of humor, and it took me a little while to catch that a lot of it was your type of sense of humor, a little bit dry, and I wasn't sure if you're, the times being serious or is he joke? Does he really see it there? I loved that you would ask your question and then ask another question and then bring that sense of humor of your viewpoint to it, your human viewpoint. And it would just, I would leave boot camp so many times just laughing at something you said or thinking like, I never saw it that way. So that's my probably most favorite thing, is getting the perspective from each of you of, I've never seen it that way, and always getting clarity from something you've shared. And to me, that's the whole beauty of the Tya community is we're all having our unique journey, but it's from your perspective. I lost my feed. There I am. Okay.
No, I agree with that. That is very like everybody's perspective about how each tools, because like tools that we're using are the same tools, but how we use them, how we incorporate them, what we get out of them is totally different. So I definitely agree with that.
I love what Cheryl just had to say. Seeing the guys joining in, us too. We love when the guys,
yeah.
Cheryl.
Their perspective. It is absolutely magical. Thank you for pointing that out, Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, I love this new direction that. I was speaking with another Tyus earlier today, and she said, "So the stream sort of said, come on already. I've told you enough. Now just get on and do it." I was like, yeah, too much.
You know, it happens a lot. I'm thinking, I'm driving my car. I'm like, oh, I should ask the stream that, and I go write it down in my little, notepad or whatever, But then at some point, I was like, I think they would say blah 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 blah, and I feel like I kind of already know what they would say.
Right.
I still ask.
Right.
Because I sort of want to hear how it's going to come out, but I sort of know, if I'm being honest with myself, I know the direction it's going to go,
Right. I so know what you mean, David. I've even asked them a question, like try to disguise it and ask it for me because I sort of want a different answer, but I know what it's going to be. And like, darn it.
I did a podcast with David a couple of weeks ago, and I was like over the weekend making my whole agenda of like, and I have like this whole long, I only got through like a third of it, but I was on one of this Sunday soul food thing, and I was just typing in questions on it, and they answered a question I was planning to ask the next Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
Like 2 days early. And it just came out. I was
freaky,
like, wait,
isn't it?
I'm going to have to
It's
change.
freaky.
But it was like, it was very weird. Yeah.
I had the bit during boot camp still, when I think David was still doing the Instagrams on the Friday, and oh my God, I had the freakiest moment of, I asked them a question and they came out with something which had nothing, just like nothing whatsoever to do with the question that I'd asked, none whatsoever. And they went directly to something like really heavy and really personal. And as I was like, oh, it's suddenly like they had answered the question that I didn't even know that I needed to ask. And it was like a massive transgressor that I still hadn't even noticed within myself. That was the most amazing moment I think that I've ever had with the stream, that they knew exactly what it was I needed to be asking, and the other was just a bit of fluff. And afterwards David said he listened to it back and was like, why did they go there like that? And I went, yeah, I know. Yeah, it is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah,
quite extraordinary.
That's
but we
what
have our
I think to me, anytime I try to ask a question or I think about a question, the answer is already popping up in my mind, so I don't ask it because the answer is already there. But I like that, David, that you still ask it because somebody else might have the same question. So I don't ask because I was like, oh, I already know the answer, so I'm good. Like I'm glad the question popped up, but I'm going to keep that in mind for future questions. There's probably a reason it popped up. Maybe somebody in the audience or somebody in the future may need it, so still ask.
That's a really good point, Luke.
And sometimes you get stuff that was sort of alongside that question, but you hadn't quite thought of the question yet. But it's sort of like, I don't know. I always come away from anything stream related with some, even if it's just a reinforcing of stuff I kind of already knew. Like there's always, to me, there's always value in that. So that's why I'm really grateful
a little
to
bit
have
more
that.
clarity on the same topic, or maybe a different perspective on the same topic, but something pops up every time. Yeah. Or even like the same thing you've already heard and you listen to it again and you learn something new the next time. Like, whoa, I didn't even notice this is like a whole new episode now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was just going to say, Luke, it's amazing to me when I go back and listen to, because I'll just pull up podcasts randomly and get some really early on podcasts that David has done. And it's like, wow, how did I never hear that before? It's like this whole new layer of information. And I know the stream has always said that, to go back and listen because it's layered, but until you really experience that, and it's like, oh my God, how did I not know that all these years, right? And then I have this moment of clarity, and but I do love that idea that yes, asking the question, even if it's been answered, is so helpful, which is, of course, why we love the community and the boot camp meetings, because even I noticed in the base camp Facebook group, oftentimes someone will post something in there and it will just bring this whole feed of conversation and, experiences. And that's how we expand. And it's a beautiful dance, for lack of a better word, because I love Sam's. That one always, I'll tell you, that one pops in my head often. Just dance.
Just
Just
dance.
dance. I'll tell you, raise your vibration and dance for yourself. Who cares who's watching? I will never forget. We had gotten in the car. I think we were all going out to dinner. And I looked back and Sam was waiting for his ride and he was all by himself in the front of the hotel and he was just dancing away. And I was like, oh my God, I love him.
That sounds like me.
It was so cool. So that always pops in my head when especially if I'm feeling a little low or something, I just think, I just need to dance and my vibe will rise right back up.
Dance is magic.
Right? Like that.
Not only like Dylan and watching him makes you happy. Like we'd be out eating and all of us friends, and I remember one time we went to a place we eat and Sam was the last one in line and we're all sitting at our table waiting for him. And I looked back, Sam's like dancing, filling up his like water. I was like, yes, queen, like dance over there. I was like, just filling up his drink. He's just having a great time filling it up. And I was like, yes, 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 that over there. That's my friend. But another thing about re-listening to like the reason I feel like we learn something new is because like we're ever changing. Like we're different people from before this podcast even started. So when we listened to the first time, we're a whole different person. And since then, we've learned something from that. We evolved, and then when we re-listen again, we're a different person. And from this perspective, when we're looking at the same thing, it was like, oh, cool. Like that information was always there. Because again, the layers, they come up because we are growing. So once we level up a little bit, listen to it again, and then listen to that same podcast again from this perspective, and you can level up more. The one podcast gets you like so far away. So that's how we pick up different things, is because we're changing and we have different perspective than what we did yesterday.
Even within the same day. Because I know that like my real high vibe time is first thing in the morning and about 4 or 5, which is the time there's that slump. And so I know how to, and I employ the Sam Page method of dancing. I'd actually just start implementing that through boot camp, literally programming in like 4 to 5 dance. Like what? Really? Dance. And don't just dance, skip. And then jump rope. Yeah. And listen to like the cheesiest high vibe music and as I say, the love song, and I dedicate them to myself, to my higher self. So I'm singing these cheesy love songs to my higher self, like it was always you I needed, or like all those, and it was like, you're going to program in having fun? Isn't that like an oxymoron somehow? But it really works. So I'm channeling my inner Sam.
Yay!
It's an honor.
Something that actually it's about like listening to old podcasts again, kind of reminded me, because one thing the stream said, I think it might have been on that podcast that hasn't come out yet. I was asking about creativity and what makes unique creativity versus imitation. And and there was some very interesting stuff that came out of that. So I hope that podcast, I can't remember for sure. I want to hear it so I remember. But they did say that imitation is still really creation, really, because even if you have an old thought, like, they scientists say we stand in the shoulders of the giants who came before us, or artists or whatever. So like, even if you're kind of inspired by something or imitating, that's still new creation. And so if you have this kind of an old idea that was covered in a podcast from like a couple of years ago, and you go and you re-explore it, that is still actually a new thought in this present moment. So there's value in it, even if it's rehashing stuff, from our
What a
perspective?
great question. You see, those are the sort of things that I mean. Oh my God, I love that. And one of my all-time favorite creativity podcasts was the one with you, Kerry, when you and David are talking about tapping into the creative source and actually literally tapping into it and choosing to feel that the great writers that come through you, and wow, boy, that, I mean, that just that one piece of information would have been worth my my price of boot camp right there. I mean, literally sometimes I read stuff in my book and think, did I write that really? And sort of, yes, that's what it is, and we can all tap into that. And in any creativity, or in you just play with it and find as musicians, do you I know Sam has spoken with you about this before. Is that something that you as well, David, as musicians, sort of feel that can tap into the great musicians and the
Yeah. Yes, and it's a little blurry sometimes when you get to orchestral music, because what we do is like partially creative but also partially craft. So
oh,
there's a little bit of, okay, I got to play this part, and the way this person
right,
waving the stick wants it to go. But
right,
there's creativity in that, in imagining. Actually, there's a lot of the aspect of it is like when you're playing, you're trying to imagine what you want the sound to be, and understanding that, like, as you imagine it more and more, that idea in your head becomes deeper in a way. There's like no real bottom end of how far you can sort of go down this envisioning. And many times when I'm sort of working with, sometimes when I have students coming, like college students or younger players, I can see that their musical ideas are just less developed, and they have to take more time to imagine deeper. And since I've been sort of doing it for longer, I feel like, I could sort of see the evolution of what I thought. But then I compare it to like the players who I really admire, who are like really at the high level. I can sense how deep how sophisticated their musical ideas are, and the musical phrasing, or their sound concept, or they're just there's creativity to it, but then there's also an aspect of kind of like a blacksmith, just doing this, or a machine. There's a bit of machine operator in there too, so it's a bit like, okay, I play this thing now. So I don't know. So, yeah, it's a bit of both.
I
fascinating.
used to draw when I was younger. I haven't done it that much recently, but in high school, I was just sitting there, and somebody in front of me was wearing like a T-shirt that had some cool characters on it. So I just started doodling, not knowing that I could. When I finished, I was like really impressed with what turned out. So after that, I would just started randomly drawing, but I would never give myself credit for it. I would just say my hand just does it. I would always be surprised with what would come up, because in my mind there would be some kind of a picture that I would like, but my hand just did itself. So like now that I think about it, I wonder if I was channeling back then, and
Yeah,
like every
yeah,
single thing that came up, I was always like, did I just draw that? Whoa!
right,
So,
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to get back into that and just let Source or whoever artistically is helping me take over my hand just do it. But
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think it's the same with like in any great, like the great Roger Federer, the tennis. When you get out of your way and let the flow through you, then that is, you are sort of the dance, or the dance. I never know which way around it is. You are the channeling. You are, yeah. It's sure it's the
every
same
time I
in every,
try to draw or try to do
yeah,
something
yeah,
creative,
right,
it doesn't work, or I'm never
right,
impressed. I'm like, but when I don't try, when I'm bored in class, usually like I'm listening to the teachers, and all my notes are so pretty because on the side of them is just these characters. My mind is not here, it's there, and
right.
I was like, how did this happen? And then I'm gonna go home and make this into like a professional looking drawing or paint it. Nope. It's just those moments is when I was just a pro, but when I actually tried, it's like, what's happening?
Right, because you've got out of your own way,
Yeah.
basically, when you were just allowing it to flow. Yeah.
That's the fascinating aspect of Tya for me, is like, is this inward journey of like, is this what I've really been sort of exploring since I've left boot camp, well, just a couple months ago, sort of recently, but like really starting to examine my paradigm of thinking, and then really questioning it, and then you know, but it's just like that about like, why do we block ourselves? Why do we get in our own way? Like, there's actually no reason. Like, if I was like a soccer player or a football player, like on a pitch, and I'm trying to like kick a goal, there's all these people trying to stop me. But if I'm sitting on a stage with my instruments, no one's in my way. Why is that hard?
Yeah.
Well, one person to blame for that. It's me. But then again, you think about like, if you're gonna like put like a piece of wood on the ground and like walk across it, okay, no big deal. But you put that thing up between two like skyscrapers,
Right.
all of a sudden the game has changed. But it's the same piece of wood. Why is it different?
Yeah.
Why is the perspective of the situation suddenly change? And that's clearly all us. But that's where I'm really fascinated in shifting that internal viewpoint of things, you know?
Right.
It's so deep.
Right.
This rabbit hole goes. Man, this is fun stuff.
It is so fun because I do believe that there is no end to it. Like there's no end to your deep dive. You can continue to go deeper than you ever imagined. Same with the upward expansion. Same. There's no end to it. It's infinite. And I love the sports analogy you brought, David, because I too played sports and I also coached a lot. And the interesting thing was, I remember my daughter both my kids played competitive sports, and like outside of school, it was a club team that they had to try out for, and then we would go to these tournaments, and I remember saying to the kids many, many times, this is no different than you playing in the gym at home and practicing. Ignore the fact that we're in this big stadium and there's new people and there's audience and all that. Just play the game, let go of the, I want to win, or we have to be the best or whatever. I said, just go in there and play. You guys got this. Did
we lose her?
Sounds like it.
Oh, I thought it was me. She was just about to tell us the answer to life and the universe is, and she froze.
Yeah. And the answer is freeze.
Well, Carrie does have a great point. When it comes to like the sports, and if you're not focused on all the other people and you're just concentrated on the actual event, that's when you're at your highest point, and you're just your most creative, and usually you do your best.
Right.
Instead of, that other pressure of thinking, of adding in the judgment. What are people thinking of me?
Right.
What is this other team thinking of me? And I mean, yeah, you do excel when you're just concentrated on you, living in the moment and being present.
Exactly, Steph. Really well put. So well put. With the onus being on play, and it's called play for a reason, and it does exactly as you said, Steph. It's always, and it is every situation. Even David, what you were saying just now, about getting in our own way. It is so simple, isn't it? Because it is always just taking the fear and judgment out of it, like in any equation that you can think of. And I would challenge you to find an equation where it's not the fear and judgment that keeps you from your source perspective. Is that me freezing there? Or
No, you're good.
I hear you.
Okay.
Hey, Carrie, what was the podcast you did where you're talking about creativity? Do you remember when that was? Because I'm going to listen to that.
I'll have to look back. I'll find it for you.
Okay.
I've probably got it on my list.
And I'm glad you brought up podcasts, because we're at the end of the hour, and it's exciting. But just know, we were not releasing any podcasts in July, but we're back on schedule. They're being, we have to edit and condense and make them pretty before we release them, and that is all in the works again. So, David, your podcast will be coming out soon. And so you guys stay tuned. We do have several podcasts that's been recorded, and we'll be starting to release those again and get back on track. So I love that. And I will look for that podcast and let you know, David.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. What a lovely, lovely roundtable. And I froze and left, and Deborah looks like picked right up. But I just want to leave you with a thought that kind of seemed to be the theme of today was have fun, enjoy this life. You know, it's just an experience. So thank you all for joining us. And Cheryl, always thank you for jumping on. We do see you and appreciate you. And I love your questions as well. Those curious minds. We love the questions and appreciate each and every one of you. So thank you guys. And we'll see you next week.
Love you all guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.